Hello designers and welcome to an After Effects tutorial with me, Tim Evans. This course has been prepared for a future representations course for the University of Greenwich. So what we're going to take a look at today is creating a flat 2D image and converting it into a 2.5D effect in After Effects. So to do this, what we're going to do is jump over into Photoshop, and here we can see Gursky's original 2D image. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by cutting out each row of shelves so that we can then put them into a 3D space within After Effects. So to do that, what we're going to do is simply use our polygon lasso tool, and we're just going to select around the top of this front aisle first, and getting as close as we can. Obviously, as we go further back, we can be less detailed as the image will be slightly further away. Although for this front one, we do obviously want to get as close to the edges as possible. Okay, so with that selected, what we're going to do is duplicate this one front layer. So to do that, we're just going to do Control and J, and what that has done is created this own layer. So we're just going to hide that and come back to our background one, and we're going to do the same, but this time we want to include the front layer and also the second one. So we're going to start at our second row back here, and just doing this one slightly quicker, as to try and keep as much detail as possible. And there we go, just come towards the end, select all of that, and just again with the background layer selected, Control J, and we have separated this. Now what we need to do is we need to clone out this front area so that when we do the perspective, none of this bleeds through. So to do that, we're just going to simply use the clone stamp tool, and what we're going to do is select from the bottom of here, and we're just going to come across, and we're just going to drag all the way across. Because this is a supermarket and the shelves are all very similar, it's quite easy to simply select on each. We don't have to come down that far. We just need to get enough so that if there was to be any bleeding through the image, that we're not going to see that. So now we can see we have our front layer and our second layer. And what we're going to do is repeat this all the way towards the back, so that eventually, obviously you can see here I've included part of the ceiling as well. And we're going to go further and back, and on the third layer I've included some of the people and also these columns. And the next layer back, what I've done is actually cut out of the columns and cloned all of these out so that they do not appear as duplicates when we come to put everything into our 3D space within After Effects. And obviously going all the way to the back, and we have all of our images. So what we're going to do now is jump back over to After Effects, and what I'm going to do is make a new project. Okay, so new project, and we end up with a blank workspace. So to get started, what we're going to do is go to Composition, a new composition, and as with before, what we're going to do is do a POW D1 DV widescreen square pixel at 1050 by 576. Pixel aspect ratio will be square pixels and a frame rate of 25 frames per second. And the duration we can do for about 15 seconds. So we're just going to click OK. And here we are. What we need to do now is import our Photoshop file. So what we're going to do is find wherever we have saved it, which we can go from our image input and our Gursky 99 cent. And when we open that up, what we're going to get is this window here. So we want the import kind to be composition, retain layer sizes. And we also want the layer options to be editable layer styles, and click OK. So what you can see here is obviously it's created its own composition with everything layered, and we also have all of our individual layers. So what we want to do is select all of these and simply just drag them down into our composition. And with all of them selected, what we need to do is scale them down so that they fit into our view. Now we will be scaling them again later, as what we have to do is create a camera. So with them in this view, what we are going to do is create a new camera, and to do that we're going to go Layer, New Camera, and what that brings up is a window, and we're just going to leave it at standard 50mm camera and click OK. Now what it says is cameras and lights do not affect 2D layers, so we click OK, and what we have to do is convert all of these into 3D by adding the rectangle, the cube next to that. So I'm just going to minimize all of our windows and drag the cube down, so these are all now in a 3D space. So what we can do is, if we come to the one view, drop down here and go 2 views horizontal, what we get is our active camera and our top view. You can also change these by selecting the view you want and dropping down from here, and you can select custom view and it will give you this isographic. So we're going to go back to top, and we can see our camera is here and all of our images are here. So what we need to do is set each image back to a different rate, so that, if we just push P to bring up the position, what we want to do is create more depth. So to do that, we're going to select our first image, and we're going to leave that where it is as it fills the frame at the moment. We're going to go to our second image and move the position in the Z space, which is the third one, and we're going to move that back 500. And what you see is that moved that back like that, and we're going to repeat this, but each time by another 500. So the third layer is going to be at 1000. The fourth or fifth layer, as I've got here, is going to be 1500, and the next one is 2000, and obviously we're just going to keep going, adding 500 each time until we get to our background. And obviously this works with however many layers you want to add in. As this is a supermarket, each set of shelves is always going to be the same amount of distance, so we know we can do the same distance on each one. Whereas if you are using an image with different depths in, you can experiment to try different depths to see on the perspective you're going to get. Now we can quickly preview what our thing is by going to Unified Camera, and we can pan around our camera. And so we're starting to get this 3D look, although the problem we've got so far is that we can see all this black where everything is behind. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all of our items again, and we're going to push S for scale and just click off so we can select one individually, and we're going to leave the first one as it is, and then we're going to scale the next one up so that it fills the window like the first one. And obviously we're going to repeat this over and over again for each one until we get all the way to the back. And the reason for doing this is obviously to hide all of our blank space around the edges, including our background. And if we look at our top view, what we can see is we have our camera. If we select our cursor, we can select the camera, and you can see that's looking at the first one, and it's forming this triangle, which is what we want. Now if we was go and pan around again, you can see that's a lot more realistic. So from here, now we have everything in place. And what we're going to do is we're going to start animating the camera around to make it look three-dimensional. So to do that, we're going to click the drop down next to camera and transform, So as with before, our position, we can animate the position, although the camera also has a point of interest. So what we're going to do in this instance is we're going to set our time to 0. We're going to keyframe the position and point of interest. And what we're going to do is move in to a point that we want, and we can also change, so we can pan forwards by decreasing the Z value to bring it forwards. And if you hold down up here, you can also track just in X and Y and in Z. So we're going to start off over this side, and what we're going to do is we're then going to move forwards towards the end. And what we're going to do is we do it manually to start off with. We're going to pan the camera down, and we're just going to change some of these figures, and obviously we want to move over so that we don't see any black space. But what I need to do is zoom in a bit more so that we can hide the edge here. And if we jump back into our two views onto one view, and we've got the active camera, what I'm going to do is fit the frame, and then we can preview down here. So as that's calculating, I'm just going to let it render out some of it. Yeah, we're just going to hit space again so that we can see in real time our movement that we have just created. So that's looking quite good. I think the only thing that we need to change a little bit is we want the camera to move just a little bit more. So we're going to jump all the way towards the end, and we come to our drop down. We're going to track in the Z axis, and we're going to then come and track the camera over to the side. And let's just quickly preview that again. So now we can see our movement all the way through, creating this three-dimensional space. Obviously we want to be careful not to zoom in too much, because if we zoom in too far you'll start to notice everything blurring. So from this stage, what we're going to do is to create a slightly better three-dimensional look using a depth of field. So what we're going to do is simply just click to turn that on, and nothing much changes to start off with. But what we want to do is, if we jump back into our two views again, what we can do now is bring down our focus distance. As we can see, the top view is now changing, and what we want for this shot is to put it about to the middle, and we'll go to about 2400 pixels. And what we're going to do then is we want to change the focus area. So to do that, we're going to move our aperture up, and as you can see, this is now blurring it even more. And as we change the focus distance, you can see the image on the right changing where we are zooming onto. So to start off with, we're going to bring all the way to the front. So we're going to bring that line in side with the first. And what we're going to do is we're going to click the focus distance. And then as we come through, we're going to go all the way to the end. And we're going to change the focus distance to push it back slightly further. So now if we take a look at that, obviously it's going to take a little bit longer to calculate this time. And there we go. So and we can see as we're moving forwards, we get towards the middle. So we're focusing on there and focusing further back. And obviously the advantage of this means that it's blurring a lot of the background where we may have skipped a lot of points in cutting it out. So that's a good time saver to make sure that you are only cutting things down and spending as much time as you need. So with all of this done, what we could do is we could add some effects on top of this. So to do that, we can just select all of our points and right click. If we then go to pre-compose and we want to move all attributes to new layer, we're going to call this pre-comp 1. We're going to change that and call it Gursky_layers so that we remember what it is later. And now that we've got this pre-comp, what we can do is we can add some effects to the whole lot of it. So we're going to go to color correction and curves, and we're just going to play around with the colors a little bit to bring it quite contrasty. Then we're going to add another one. This time we're going to noise and grain, and because of the style of the image, I think we're going to add a little bit of grain, and because we want to zoom in, we don't need the top view anymore. So what we're going to do is go to one view, active camera, and obviously we want to select a preset just to make this quick, and you can see this kind of grain coming in the middle on our preview window. So preview and view in mode, final output, and that's going to calculate it for the whole lot. Obviously this is going to slow down the calculation, so you may want to drop this down to half. So we have this really grainy image zooming in, and what we could do is just bring down the intensity to about 0.5. Okay, so now we've got a few effects on there, and what we could do now is just decrease the saturation a little bit. So we're going to go to effects and color correction, and what we could add is a hue saturation, and in this window we're just going to bring down the saturation just a little bit. Obviously we could play around, maybe bring the lightness down just a touch, and we're going to leave the hue as it is for this time. So with our image, if we are quite happy with the animation, all we need to do now is go to render queue. We go to comp 1, and what we're going to do is composition, add to render queue, and change our settings to QuickTime. And as we are exporting this to upload to YouTube, we want to select the video codec of H.264. We can leave the quality as it is because we want as much sharpness as possible. So we're going to click OK, OK again. We're going to choose where to save it. So obviously save it into a reasonable location. And I'm going to call it Shopping Centre Tutorial. Click Save. And then we just want to render this out. Now this may take a little while, so we'll see you in a second. Okay, there we are. So let's just jump in and open up our output file. So what we're going to do is open that, and here we have our final animation. So obviously you could also add sound and more effects into that, and there we have a Gursky animation with a 2.5D parallax effect. I've been Tim Evans, and thank you for watching.